Is this
Yeah.
So we're in for the call.
Okay.
And then the final, like the final stage.
Just this couple. Well, that's all.
I'm sure that there are opinions, but it seems kind of odd. You know what I mean? They don't know the. I don't know what's on. I don't know. The documents, yeah, it is, I mean. All right, that's the fun stuff. Should we do the introduction? Yeah. We need to do the. Yes.
Do I need to stand somewhere in particular for the Hangouts or no?
I think as long as you're close enough to the laptop for the mic
Okay,
to pick it up.
but they don't need to see me?
No, because they won't see you anyway. They'll just hear your voice
Okay.
on the YouTube video.
Okay, cool.
Okay, welcome to the 6th, I think, installment of Digital Classicist New England, everyone. We're happy to have Dr. Gwyneth McIntyre here to talk about From Stone to Screen.
Thank you. Can everybody see that okay, or should we do the first bank of lights? Maybe?
There we go.
Better? Awesome. All right, so thank you very much for inviting me to come and speak with you today. As the field of digital humanities grows, a variety of new research and pedagogical tools have become available for scholars studying the ancient world. However, the cost often associated with these tools, as well as the sheer volume of available software, can be overwhelming, especially for those wishing to undertake smaller scale projects. Today, I'd like to present two components of a graduate student-launched digital project entitled From Stone to Screen. There are over 1,000 epigraphic squeezes housed within the Department of Classical, Near Eastern, and Religious Studies at the University of British Columbia in Vancouver, Canada. We also have a small artifact collection, both of which are currently stored in locked storage rooms with limited access. In 2012, Chelsea Gardner proposed to digitize both collections to make them accessible for both teaching within the department and to a wider academic audience. With regards to these two collections, I would like to share with you some viable, tested, and practical routes that our project has used to basically make these materials available for a wider audience and to encourage classicists, archaeologists, and and ancient historians alike with similar projects and budgetary constraints to engage with digital humanities. Our project has explored a variety of methods of dissemination, including social media, conference presentations, and collaboration with other institutions. Our goals are to increase awareness of the tools easily available to us as scholars and to work towards building a community interested in digital antiquity. I'll begin by briefly outlining our collections and how we overcame some of the initial challenges in digitizing our collection before moving to a more detailed discussion of the two components of our project and how we've been able to and continue to strive to integrate our collections into wider academic communities through digital media and academic collaborations. So first, the MacGregor Squeeze collection was donated by Dr. Malcolm MacGregor, a renowned scholar of Athenian history and Greek epigraphy, and a former professor in the Department of Classical Studies before it was merged with Near Eastern and Religious Studies at UBC. His collection largely comprises inscriptions from Attica from the 5th century BCE, some inscriptions from Nemea from the same period, and several decrees dating to the 2nd century BCE. This collection contains 1,051 squeezes, although this number includes several duplicate copies of select inscriptions. And access to this large amount of material allows for the possibility of studying inscriptions from these geographical areas and periods all in one place. The most notable squeezes in the collection are of the Athenian tribute lists, or the ATLs, which were the main focus of MacGregor's research for many years, and a subject of his formative work. Together with H.D. Wade-Gary and B.D. Merritt, MacGregor authored the definitive volumes on the reconstruction of these lists, which include both texts and translations of the documents. The collection is a result of the research and study carried out for these volumes. The original inscriptions are held in the Athens Epigraphical Museum and are difficult for scholars to study firsthand because of their monumental height. They're 3.5 meters or just under 12 feet at their tallest. The general inaccessibility of these inscriptions makes squeeze collections such as ours all the more instrumental for the study of the features of these artifacts and for the reconstruction of the fragments. For example, here's a squeeze which corresponds to this part of the list here. Maybe, if it comes up, there we go. So, however, capturing clear digital images of epigraphic squeezes is one of the greatest challenges of projects of this kind, which is further complicated by the types of technology available and access to resources required to digitize the collection, a point which I'll return to in a moment. The other collection currently housed in our department is the George Fuller Collection, donated in 2001 following a clinic held at the Lab of Archaeology, or LOA, where members of the public brought in their artifacts for faculty members to help with their identification. Mr. Fuller's father was a diplomat in the Middle East in the 1930s, and during his time there, he purchased the artifacts in the collection from antiquity shops in a number of cities, including Cairo, Jerusalem, and Baghdad. And here you can just see the variety of our collection. We have a Carthaginian lamp in the top left there, an Egyptian amulet, a clay jar, a medieval vessel, and a cuneiform tablet. All other information about these artifacts comes from the assessments made by Drs. Lisa Cooper and Hector Williams, both faculty in our department, and since they were purchased in a variety of places, their specific provenance is largely unknown. Student volunteers have begun going through this collection and adding relevant bibliography, additional information, and in the case of our cuneiform tablet, an updated translation. Digitizing these artifacts was technically easier than the squeezes, but our challenge here was to determine the best, most suitable platform for hosting such a collection digitally, and to ensure the accompanying metadata could be easily integrated with or linked to our larger collections. So, in the beginning stages of the From Stone to Screen project, our first hurdle was finding the money and resources to undertake the digitization process for both our collections. The Fuller collection proved to be an easier task due to the nature of the artifacts. These are easily photographed using a DSLR camera, a homemade light box, and a sunny day in our department reading room, and voila. The collection is photographed by Jessica Mazziati, a graphic design student who is friends of one of the grad students associated with the project, who generously donated her time to help jumpstart our project. A former graduate student, David Asif, was then tasked with creating a digital collection and uploading the preliminary metadata. The funds for these preliminary tasks were acquired through basically department bake sales and book sales. So there you go, helped compensate these individuals for some of their time. But we discovered for some of the smaller objects, like this Egyptian amulet, traditional photography was not always the best option, especially if they don't stand up on their own. And after some experimentation, we actually determined that flatbed scanners can actually produce better images than traditional photographs, although there's not the same depth of field, and you can kind of see in the left ear there, it's slightly out of focus. The collection itself is housed on Dcne, a web publishing platform which is used to display collections and build digital exhibitions. It's fairly user-friendly and does not require technical skill or special server requirements. It's also free. Our Omeka site currently has all of the data from the preliminary assessment of the department artifact collection. You can see here a couple examples. The collection is keyword searchable, and each artifact will eventually include a student research on an individual artifacts during the classroom implementation stage of our project. This has already started on the cuneiform tablet. So as you can see here, we have an updated translation provided by Nicholas Kraus, who is a former UBC graduate student who is currently working on a PhD in Assyriology at Yale. We have a line drawing there as well, and two images, the front and the back. And as you can see, this is actually a really good example here. The image on the left of the front of the tablet is done with a flatbed scanner. The image on the right, that is the back of the tablet, is done with just a camera. And you can see the clarity we actually get with these and the flatbed scanner. Another example is a vaulting tube. And for those of you who don't know what a vaulting tube is, our undergrad volunteers have come up with a nice description for you. They're basically used to create vaults, as one might expect. Nice lightweight thing there for you. This entry also includes bibliography, which I didn't include here, to allow for further study into these artifacts. But as you may have noticed with these screen captures, I've included the images separately from the text itself. On the site, the images are placed at the bottom of the page, which seems a bit counterintuitive considering this is supposed to be a digital collection. So we're currently researching to see if we can actually change the layout of the page so that the image will come up first with a description at the bottom. The Omeka website was designed to be used as a guide to facilitate research. This is a work in progress, but will eventually have references and basic information that will allow our students to study these objects independently or work hands-on in collaboration with their professors, acquiring skills not possible in the usual lecture setting. One of our goals is to include 3D imagery, which will allow users to fully rotate and examine all of the artifacts. This site allows any student interested in conducting independent research on any of these artifacts access to this data, the photographs, and scholarly analyses, and incorporate this information into their own work. One of the most appealing features of the Omeka site as an online artifact collection database is its ability to house separate collections within a given project. The Laboratory of Archaeology at UBC, so LOA, has recently acquired a collection of archaeological artifacts from Bahrain by the family of Harvey F. Blackmore. This collection includes over 200 artifacts dating to two periods, the Dcne period, early 2nd millennium BCE, and the Tylos period, 300 BCE to 600 CE, and includes ceramics, metals, and stone objects. It will be used as a teaching collection for the archaeology students and is currently in the teaching lab. I'll give you just some examples here. These photos aren't great because these are the preliminary photos. We haven't actually digitized these yet, but we have some glazed ware, a Dcne seal of a goat, you can see in the left-hand corner there, a pin with a bone handle, and a Dcne jug, and then some beads there for you. We have also been given the opportunity to digitize this collection, and we will host it on our Omeka site. And finally, the Omeka platform allows users to create exhibits from all their digital collections, which has much potential for teaching and research opportunities in the field of digital curation. For example, one could create a digital exhibition of all of the artifacts related to ancient technology, or religion, or funerary objects, or alternatively, one could create exhibitions of all objects made of metal throughout the collections, or all of one type of object, say bowls, jewelry, or for example, lamps. The Squeeze collection proved to be significantly more challenged, both technically and resource-wise. The original goal for the digitization of the McGregor collection was to find a non-destructive process that would generate crisp, detailed images that retained the three-dimensional nature of the squeeze. Some of you may be asking exactly what is a squeeze, and I've included a prototype of an introductory video that we've made as part of our teaching modules. So let's see if this actually works.
Part of the From Stone to Screen introductory video series. A squeeze in general refers to a molding or cast of an object made by pressing a pliable substance around or over it. An epigraphic squeeze in particular is the impression of an inscription on stone, like these ancient fragments seen in this photo. An epigraphic squeeze uses filter paper, also pictured here, which is porous but strong paper used for filtering liquids and most often employed in the field of chemistry. The process of creating a squeeze is as follows. First, the filter paper is dampened and placed atop the inscription. Next, a custom horsehair brush is used to hit the paper at the correct angle so that the paper is pressed into the grooves of the stone. The paper is left to dry, and you can see in the photos here how much harder it is to read the original stone's carved words on the left. They already become much more clear with filter paper laid across the letters. Let's see this process in action. Step 1, preparation. Video. A student demonstrates the squeeze making process using an angled brush to drive the paper into the inscription. Although this technique is pretty straightforward, you have to be careful to hit the inscription at just the right angle so the paper doesn't tear. Step 2, removal. Once the paper is dry, it is carefully peeled off. The student here takes his time to make sure he doesn't rip the paper. It doesn't take long for a squeeze to dry in the hot sun, but you still don't want to rip your squeeze and waste your time and your filter paper. The finished product peels off, fully intact, and a mirror copy of the inscription is revealed. But think about this. How easy is it to read mirrored words? These letters are a good example of the words on a squeeze, and they say, so you end up with something like this, which can be very hard to read. But some of our stones might actually look like this and be harder to read, especially with letters missing and no idea what the text said originally. Still, these backwards copies of ancient inscriptions are incredibly valuable tools for research in the field of Greek and Latin epigraphy. When encountered in the field, inscriptions are most commonly located on immovable stones, but squeezes allow scholars and researchers to virtually transport the stone to research institutions worldwide. So even in the 21st century, we are using this simple technology that only requires water, filter paper, a horsehair brush, and of course an inscription, as the best way to study the words carved by ancient people hundreds and even thousands of years ago. From Stone to Screen, we'd like to thank the financial support provided by the Teaching and Learning Enhancement Fund and by the Department of Classical, Near Eastern, and Religious Studies at the University of British Columbia. For more information, visit FromStoneToScreen.com and click on Multimedia for more videos.
So that just gives you an example of some of what we are doing with this project and our teaching modules. So in the summer of 2013, we approached UBC's library's Digitization Center, generally referred to as DI, or Digital Initiatives. It's in the basement of the Learning Center there. You can kind of see it. Yeah, basically exactly where it says there. To take advantage of their technical expertise in digital archiving, although most of their previous projects had involved the digitization of two-dimensional letters and other documents. Two assistants, Leslie Field and Chris Pugh, worked with a sample of squeezes, just a couple, using a TTI reprographic workstation to determine the viability of DI collaboration with the digitization of the McGregor collection. After much trial and error, they were able to create a workflow that creates stunningly clear images which fully capture the details of the original squeeze. This is probably one of our nicest ones. You can just see how clear that is. The other exciting thing is if we were to blow that up to 100% magnification, you can basically see all of the incongruities of the stone and the letter forms. However, in order to move forward with our digitization of the entire epigraphic squeeze collection, we needed something else, which is one of the largest hurdles to small digitization projects: money. And this is where I first became associated with the project. This project originated as a graduate student-run initiative, but at this early stage, it became clear that having a faculty member on board could open avenues of funding which were not available to the students. Because of the student-driven nature of this project, both through the individuals working on the digitization aspect and the desire for the collections to be open access teaching and research collections for UBC, I decided to apply for funding through UBC's Teaching and Learning Development Fund, or the TLEF, for the 2014-15 academic year. This fund was created in 1991 to enrich student learning by supporting innovative and effective educational enhancements. The Flexible Learning Initiative component of this grant supports projects which enable pedagogical and logistical flexibility so that students have more choice in their learning opportunities, including when, where, and what they want to learn. Our applications stress the open access nature of our project, its usefulness to help undergraduate students engage with material culture, both in and out of the classroom, and the opportunity for students to expand their interpretive and critical thinking skills by allowing them to engage with a variety of sources for the study of the ancient world. Finally, and most importantly, it stressed the fact that the project itself provides learning and teaching opportunities for graduate students through their involvement in designing and managing a large collaborative project, applications for funding, academic writing, and conference presentations. And you can see here on the left, two of our grad students, Hallie Bertram and Heather Riddell, matching up squeezes with McGregor's reconstruction. And the two photos on the right are Chelsea Gardner and Kat Solberg presenting our teaching modules at a digital pedagogy conference and the digitization process at this year's AIA annual meeting. All of these skills will help our students succeed in academia and in the workplace generally after completing their MA and PhD programs. And our group of volunteers is now expanding to include senior undergraduates as well. And next year, one of our honors students in classics will be engaging with this material as part of her thesis on the Athenian tribute lists and administration of the empire. Our application for the first year of funding was successful, or of course I wouldn't be here, and we immediately began digitizing our squeeze collection and uploading the images and metadata to the DI website. This work was done through 2 positions funded by the TLEF directly and some additional hours coming from UBC's Work Learn program. The Sinners Department also contributed to the project. Sinners is our classical Near Eastern and religious studies. It's kind of a mouthful, so it's easier to abbreviate. They contributed to TA ships, which were used to then set up and manage our project's digital presence through an independent website, Twitter account, Facebook account, etc., and manage the metadata and uploading process. Since the digitization of squeezes is now almost complete, we are working on putting together teaching modules and these videos, as you just saw. These will be freely available and are designed to be used in Greek language teaching at the various levels for the time being. So for example, this year in our first year Greek class, students got the chance to learn the alphabet in capital letters by picking out various forms here. So there's a sigma and a delta, just surely kind of hunt and discover. And then also talking about how we get from the stone inscription itself to a transliteration and transcription with all of your punctuation included down to the actual translation. Our intermediate level Greek class studied and translated this inscription. And this inscription we chose in particular because it uses the subjunctive, a mood that they were just learning. And so they can see how this is working in action. This translation was then included on the poster that was presented at the AIA, and you can see it right there. So over time, we will be developing teaching modules for Greek archaeology, history, and society classes, as well as archaeological teaching modules based on the collections on Omeka. We have also been invited to present our digital artifact collection in one of the local high schools, and we look forward to promoting the study of the ancient world in learning environments beyond the university lecture halls and classrooms. We successfully applied for a second year of funding for the 2015-16 academic year, which will allow us to continue this work on creating teaching modules, as well as digitize and incorporate the newly donated Harvey F. Blackmore collection into our Omeka site and teaching modules. So although this project has been partially funded through our TLEF grant, these funds are extremely restricted in how they can be used, basically to hire students and to digitize the squeezes, but that is it. So we need money for our hardware, the software, and the general maintenance of our website, and also, of course, for conference travel and other forms of scholarly dissemination. This restriction on how we use the TLEF funds has meant that we've been challenged to find resources to help promote our work. And our department has been very helpful in giving us money to attend conferences and present posters and papers. But our general maintenance basically comes through fundraising efforts. And these include, we have a Zazzle website where we sell merchandise with our cool images on them. We've just done a Teespring campaign, which has basically got us $400. That just finished this week. We're doing a pub trivia night. We get private donations. And of course, our traditional book and bake sales. There are grad students looking cheerful, selling baked deliciousness. So when we started this project, finding digital initiatives in the library across from our offices was an unexpected blessing. They had the equipment and expertise to properly and beautifully digitize our squeezes and would host the images through the library's digital collection site. And this removed a number of obstacles for us. The photographic expertise of Leslie Field and Chris Pugh behind the scenes brought the proposal of digitizing the squeezes into reality, as they worked through how to best photograph and edit the images for maximum clarity. Larissa Ringham, one of the digital librarians, has overseen all of the technical components of this project and has helped many members of our teams learn the basics of content DM and has taught them the uploading process for images and data, and has helped ensure that our collection conforms to and remains consistent with the other digital collections housed through the UBC library. This collaboration ensures the long-term survival of the collection its maintenance, and its goals, as DI shares the same commitment we do to making all their resources as open and as accessible as possible. In the interest of time, I'm going to just briefly talk about our photographic technique, although if you're interested, we can talk about this a bit after. Basically, there's our workstation, our TTI table, has a 4x6 vacuum table that we can put the squeezes on with mounted lights. We do a 45-degree raking light so that we get wow, I apparently can't talk anymore. The shadows of that the letters are making, and then a suspended camera pointing down. So the side of the squeeze that we put facing up is the side of the squeeze that's come into direct contact with the stone, because of course that's our direct imprint. The squeeze is then photographed by a Sinar 86H camera back with digital CMV lens, and it shoots 4 frames per image in an X pattern. So from top left to bottom right, and then bottom left to top right, shifting by a single pixel per frame. Initially, we were using Capture Shop, which we were able to program to automatically bracket images of the squeezes. And bracketing means that basically the camera takes a series of 3 images, one overexposed, one underexposed, and one perfectly exposed, and then we merge them together using HDR, or high dynamic range. The result is a photo that has the sharpest contrast between shadows and light, which is essential in rendering the 3D squeeze. However, as with many digital projects and the speed at which new technologies are developed and implemented, the imaging software was upgraded halfway through the project. When digital initiatives switched to Capture Flow in the fall of 2014, we realized too late that we were unable to automate the bracketing function. It's possible to do this manually, but changing the camera setting for every image capture was going to be increasingly time-consuming. And since the TTI tables needed for other projects at digital initiatives, it fell to Leslie Field to devise a workaround. He did this by manipulating a feature of Photoshop that allows us to mimic the bracketing, simply by taking one photograph, 2 copies of the file, overexposed, underexposed digitally, and then merge them as before. While we still have an enormous appreciation for the technical expertise, resources, and assistance from our colleagues at Digital Initiatives, we've also encountered some frustrations and unforeseen difficulties. First, the DI website that hosts our images is not necessarily user-friendly. It's unattractive, unwelcoming, and unintuitive. And the search function is particularly frustrating, and my students make fun of me all the time because I have problems with it, and I can't find the squeezes I'm looking for. Eventually, DI is getting a website upgrade to a much more intuitive and user-friendly format, although this upgrade has been delayed. Our other technical issues also stem from this delayed upgrade. So at the moment, the URI, or the Uniform Resource Identifier, of each squeeze is a random alphanumeric string that does not reflect the content of the image. So for example, you guys are going to see this squeeze a fair amount today. This is from the Inscriptiones Graecae IG 335. What we would like is for it to look like this. Right? That makes sense. The URI, great. What it actually looks like is this. None of those numbers represent any identifying numbers connected with the inscription. When the new website goes live, so when we get this upgrade, it will be using an API, or Application Program Interface Platform. Such platforms are specifically designed to create an open architecture for sharing content and data between communities and applications. So in this way, we're hoping that this will open up some avenues for us that have previously been closed. What this means for our project in particular is that we can finally move forward with 2 particular collaborative projects. The Europeana Network of Ancient Greek and Latin Epigraphy, a multilingual online collection of millions of digitized items from European museums, libraries, archives, and multimedia collections, and the Attic Inscriptions Online, a website that publishes English translations and bibliographic references to the inscriptions of Athens and Attica. EAGLE is working towards providing a database of the surviving Greco-Roman inscriptions around the world. They have a large database of images of the original stones, and a collaboration with them would put our squeeze collection in its proper archaeological context. The Attic Inscriptions Online is working to continually provide English translations of inscriptions from Athens and Attica, and many of our squeezes overlap with their translations. We've spoken with their programmer about linking our squeeze images to their translations to give their audience a sense of how the inscriptions look before they're neatly transcribed and translated. By collaborating with these two other digitization projects, we will be able to showcase the value of epigraphic squeezes, taking a stone inscription from the field to translation and publication. However, all that's on hold while we wait basically for this upgrade. These technical hiccups have not prevented us from pursuing other future collaborative projects, which I'll outline shortly, but we've had a number of opportunities to present our work and to collaborate, some of which are just shown here. When we began, we modestly thought that we would digitize the squeezes primarily for classroom use within our department at UBC, although we optimistically hoped that there would be some wider scholarly interest. The fact that there is no Greek epigrapher working on the project, however, meant that we had little idea how large and connected the international field of digital epigraphy really was, or what our place in that field might be. We are not alone in this. Projects at every institution begin in a bit of a vacuum and make use of the resources they have access to with the funds they have available. Once a project has proven its viability, it becomes easier to access funding, attend conferences, and disseminate ideas with others in the field. But that initial phase of getting a project off the ground tends to happen in relative isolation. This results in similar or complementary projects taking off from a number of different institutions using different and occasionally incompatible platforms. And this brings me to the final section of my presentation, the importance of wider dissemination and collaboration with other institutions, housing similar collections, seeking to digitize their collections with similar techniques, and conversing with scholars throughout the world with relevant expertise to further the usability and sustainability of our project. The original student-run initiative began with the aim to completely digitize the department's Fuller artifact collection, as well as the McGregor Squeeze collection. And since its inception 3 years ago, From Stone to Screen has gained international attention due to its unparalleled imaging technique. We have presented our project to professional organizations and universities in the United States, Canada, and France, and are moving towards a new stage in the project, which involves collaboration efforts with interested parties, as well as the creation of freely downloadable classroom modules for pedagogical implementation. We are seeking to establish collaborations with other institutions and initiatives to provide a wider breadth of information for users. Our ultimate goal is to create an ever-expanding database which is readily available for any interested party who may want to actively engage with the study of epigraphy and archaeology through digital analysis and investigation. So it's worth now outlining some of our collaborative efforts in their preliminary stages. As I already mentioned, in 2014, a collection of archaeological artifacts from Bahrain, just in case you weren't sure what that was, because I wasn't before this started, were donated to LOA by the family of Harvey F. Blackmore. Blackmore worked for the Bahrain Petroleum Company in the 1960s, and during this period, he supervised a number of amateur excavations with permission of the Bahraini government. This collection contains more than 200 artifacts, as I mentioned before. We are currently unpacking and cataloging the artifacts, as well as collecting and organizing all of the information which came with them, such as Blackmore's own notes and photographs. From Stone to Screen will begin the digitization process with the financial support of the TLEF in early May. But as you can see here, we've already started with our student volunteers cataloging and recording these artifacts. That's Courtney Innes and Shireen Abtakhthani. And one of our postdocs in Near Eastern archaeology is experimenting with photogrammetry. So there's a little black cylinder seal in the middle of our makeshift box. The little papers around it basically will tell the programmed photo scan where the camera position was as she takes overlapping pictures all the way around. And then you insert those photos and a nice 3D model comes out. Although in this case, we've learned photogrammetry, and this program in particular doesn't like small, black, shiny objects. And she created a nice 3D model of the room, but not the cylinder seal. So we got some work to play with there. She did a jar as well, which worked out fine. So we've got some playing around to do. As already discussed, the digitization of our department's collection is done in partnership with the University of British Columbia Library, specifically digital initiatives. As a natural progression from this partnership is a collaboration with another branch of the UBC Library, that of rare books and special collections. Just last month, it was brought to our attention that RBSC had a collection of cuneiform tablets, which they themselves had been using as a teaching resource for discussions of cataloging unusual material. Chelsea Gardner and Larissa Ringham requested permission to view these tablets, and the librarians at RBSC kindly obliged. Moreover, one of the RBSC librarians, Chelsea Scrivener, had recently discovered the existence of 2 ancient Greek papyri among the vertical stacks. They were just sitting there on the bookshelf. She brought these out alongside the cuneiform tablets, rightly assuming we'd be extremely interested in these. And after some investigation with the help of another professor in our department, Dr. Toff Marshall, it was discovered that these papyri were acquired in the 1930s, but were thought to have been lost for the past 60 years because they were sitting on a shelf. They're probably from Oxyrhynchus, and one is the reminder for an invitation to dinner for Serapis, the one on the left, and the other is a letter to the author's mom, "I've arrived safe." Both are from the Roman period, and nothing more is precisely known. Naturally, our inclination was to preserve these artifacts digitally as well as physically, and a proposal was submitted to the RBSC and approved to add all 5 cuneiform tablets, as well as the 2 papyri, to our collection. The first of the papyri was digitized on Wednesday. It just hasn't been uploaded yet. These artifacts will also receive, of course, the database entries in the UBC Library's Content DM collections, thereby providing additional documentation and securing their digital preservation. The digitization of Greek papyri follows the methods used for the digitization of the epigraphic squeezes. And the existence of original papyri in Canadian collections is extremely rare, although now I wonder how many of them are just sitting in shelves in libraries. And making the images and translations thereof freely available to the general public would be a significant contribution to Greek epistolatory studies. The RBSC tablet collection will also be scanned and submitted to the Cuneiform Digital Library Initiative. This is our other collaboration we are working on. So our oldest object in our collection is the cuneiform tablet dating to the Ur-3 period. So in addition to Nicholas Krauss's new translation and transliteration, Nick and our team are working towards digitization of the remaining cuneiform tablets, both in rare books and in the Museum of Anthropology at UBC, in order to create a comprehensive database for the various collections within our university. More importantly, however, is the preparation of the cuneiform tablets for the submission to this initiative, an online open access resource which provides high quality scans of cuneiform artifacts from collections worldwide. The submission procedure is very specific and requires certain equipment, but by doing so, From Stone to Screen will contribute to the largest cuneiform tablet database in the world. Ultimately, we envision international partnerships, and in January, we proposed a pilot collaboration with the Field Museum's collection of ancient Greek, Latin, and Etruscan inscriptions, as well as their collection of cuneiform tablets. Our team suggested a collaborative project involving any inscriptions, or squeezes thereof, in the Field Museum's collections. Ideally, this would involve traveling to Chicago to physically take squeezes of the inscriptions, transport the squeezes back to Vancouver, digitizing them according to our methods, and then adding those images and metadata to our own website, and then sending the squeezes back to Chicago for storage. Like the tablets in the Fuller collection and RBSC, we propose to digitize the Field Museum's tablet collection as well and upload it to CDLI. We received a response in support from the Field Museum and are currently awaiting a follow-up from Jamie Kelly, a collections manager for the relevant collections. But furthermore, the curator of these collections, Dr. William Parkinson, who you can see in this slide here showing Dr. Hector Williams, one of our faculty members, their lamp collection, he suggested that we should also consider creating 3D images of the tablets. 3D imaging is an ideal technique when applied to objects such as tablets, which require inspection from multiple angles for accurate interpretation. By making 3D imagery of the cuneiform tablets available, From Stone to Screen would be a pioneering database among digital humanities projects. And finally, our ultimate goal for the digital collections website, which hosts the images of the epigraphic squeezes, is for each inscription in our collection to have full bibliographic information, as well as epigraphic transcriptions and English translations. Ideally, we would also like photos of the original inscriptions as well, to provide as much context and information to those visiting the website and interested in inscriptions. We seek to establish collaborations with institutions such as the Epigraphical Museum in Athens to provide this wider breadth of information for our users. In January, we submitted a request to the Greek Ministry of Culture through the American School of Classical Studies at Athens to conduct a pilot project which would involve taking digital photographs with scale of the physical inscriptions housed in their museum. These photos would then be displayed through the DI website along with their respective squeezes. In presenting the photographs of the stones, many of which are currently only accessible in dated and often difficult to access publications, alongside our squeezes, we hope to facilitate further use of the material for research and classroom use. Our initial request was 26 fragments of the Athenian tribute list, 9 of which are from list 1, the famed Lapis Primus, as well as 3 other miscellaneous inscriptions which have featured prominently in our presentations, lectures, and teaching materials. You will recognize these, that inscription in particular, and then 2 which relate to the Temple of Athena Nike on the Acropolis and the priestess. So we began our project in relative isolation, and this presented us an opportunity to pioneer, with the help of some technicians at DI, a new photographic technique for epigraphic squeezes. We are incredibly proud of this work, as most institutions had accepted that photography was insufficient to capture the 3D nature of an epigraphic squeeze. Yet we have also learned that working in isolation presents challenges down the road. Had we known about the Eagle database, perhaps we would have found a hosting solution that followed the API guidelines and would allow free and easy collaboration. What has become apparent as we move forward with future plans is that communication is key. Getting in touch with other institutions and finding out how we can best support each other through digital publication is the only way to move forward. And to quote Charlotte Tupman, the key to improving digital publication further appears to lie in the way in which scholars work together. The more interdisciplinarity can be encouraged, the better digital publications will become. Rather than holding back from working collaboratively, we should embrace the opportunities that technological advances present and seek new ways to further our knowledge. Thank you. So this slide basically has all of our contact details. We do have a separate website from stonetoscreen.com that basically can link you to all of the other stuff, but you can look at the landing page for our digital collections is there. It's easier to go through the From Stone to Screen and just click the link. There's our Omeka site, and then we also can be contacted those ways. I've also brought cards too, if you want to grab one on your way out. Yeah.
I was wondering, what is the big difference between the content that is hosted on your Omeka site and the Content DM site hosted through the library? Is the library's Content DM site basically just have all the content you have on your Omeka site for the hopes of long-term digital curation, or?
No, so the Content DM through the library is only the squeezes. Okay. Right now, basically Omeka only has the 26 artifacts we have from the George Fuller, and then what's going to happen with the Blackmore collection is that's going to go up there as well. So that is something we are trying to figure out because it is online, to make sure that that remains sustainable and well curated is something that we are starting to try and figure out how to best do that. The university servers seem to have free storage, and so we may have a digital archive of the Omeka site material incorporated into that archive. But right now, the Content DM through the library is just squeezes, and will be now the papyri as well. And then all of the artifacts are through Omeka. But excellent question.
I don't see a licensing statement on the Content DM, or do you have like have you selected a license or just put it out there and said people can do what they want?
People can do what they want. This is a bit, part of what we wanted to do is basically allow people to do whatever they wanted with these images. And what the library is doing is we're starting to look at actual Creative Commons and things like that for the licensing, but we're just not entirely sure where we're going with that, just because the original process was really to make these photographs able for anybody to use in any way that they want.
See, probably what you should, probably where you'll end up, and you should think about it. But you need, put it this way, if you don't have a license, so one point of view is like, if you don't have a license, you can do anything you want. My point of view is if it's not a license, I don't know what can be done. I would not work with this.
Okay.
So if you, what you probably want to say, CC by SA,
Right.
which means you can do what you want, just tell people where you've got it.
Right.
And there's no copyright issue here.
No.
But that's, and even people could just take it, but that way they know they're, you know.
They're free to use it.
It's kind of the friendly way, and do mention us, they won't, but usually, but as we know.
Yeah.
But at least you can make, you could feel morally superior when they don't.
Yes. Yes. No.
And I'm sure your library is going there anyway. But
Yes. Well, and I feel like because it's through the library digital archive that whatever their licensing that they're using for their stuff, this just folds into it. But we do need to actually, as you rightly say, make some kind of a statement so that people don't look at these and just go, I don't know how to use these, because we want people to be using them.
I mean, you, like in Europe also, we have, you do databases of copyright
Right.
for like 15 years or something, not
Okay.
forever, but you do have to, if I look at data,
Right.
you know, I won't reuse it unless I know,
Okay.
you know, I explicitly have permission to do so.
Right.
Because, you know, because you do find lots of people, there are a lot of cranky people who put stuff up online because they like to do it and they want everyone to see it, but they're very picky.
Yeah.
And it's their way and they worked hard, and so way of expression, they get really upset unless it's their total control. So you, in general, when you're using stuff online now, you really depend upon a licensing statement to tell you what's free.
Right. Okay. No, that's great. And in fact, we're in kind of negotiations at the moment of trying to figure out how to make these images accessible on Wikimedia, which would also open up the access to people being able to just grab these images
And then you have an
find
explicit
them.
license, which is easy.
Yes, exactly.
On another note, you mentioned involvement with high schools, and I wanted to know a little more about that.
So basically, this is in its preliminary stage when Chelsea and Kat gave their talk at the pedagogy. It was a past matters, and people were talking about incorporating primary sources in history and archaeology classes. But a school teacher from the general vicinity was in the audience and said, that's great, we're talking about museums and curation. Why don't you come and actually show our collection and just talk about stuff? Which is really cool because it gives students, especially doing classics or Near Eastern studies or religious studies, students in high school don't know what that is.
Right.
And so actually being able to kind of take some of these materials into the classroom would be an avenue for them to actually see the cool stuff that we do. And it's not just reading what they think are classics, which is probably Dickens. So not at all what we do. We also very luckily have a Greek archaeologist who's teaching at one of the private boys' schools, who we haven't directly approached yet, but I think that's our next avenue as well, because she's already doing some of this in her classes, and especially playing around with the Greek alphabet in her classes, just to get students aware of what they could possibly do at the undergrad level. And
So will some of your teaching modules be geared towards high schools?
We haven't done that yet. So with the TLEF, it really is for university level, but a lot of the stuff we're doing is really volunteer based. So we can do whatever we want. And if there are people who want that kind of a thing, then just get in touch with us and we'll figure out how to actually work with teachers to get what they would like. And these nice, again, the introductory videos seem to be the avenue that we're headed. And in fact, the next video we're working on is the artifact collection, of talking about the George Fuller collection, what we have, how we got it, all that kind of stuff. So, right.
So how do you think about, and I'm sorry, as you know, I had to come in late. So, but how do you imagine doing the new translations and tying together the inscription and the transcription and the translation, all that stuff?
We need to figure out how to do markup, which I think you guys might be the best people to talk to. The other thing is, I mean, if Attic Conscriptions Online already has them, why would we do our own if they've already been done? So I think the big thing is we'll be working on transcribing our squeezes, because sometimes there are difference in letter interpretation and thing. but potentially linking into, and that's why I think the Attic Inscriptions Online database and linking us into that is probably the best avenue, because there's no point in reinventing the wheel. Or potentially saying that our translations would be better than somebody else's, because most of the time with these, especially, we're working on student research. And so actually making those collaborations, it doesn't make sense for us all to have these digital websites that are all doing the same thing. Why not, again, collaborate and actually work together and link up with the various things. But I think for us, we want the kind of bibliography, the context for our squeezes, the images of the stones, if we can as well, and then link to these other resources people can use.
And your collection is strictly Attic, right?
It is basically Attic. We have a couple 2nd century BCE dedications, but it's pretty much Attic and some Nemea stuff. And the Nemea stuff is not cataloged at all. And we've been talking with the excavators at Nemea to see if we can actually figure out what they are of, which is really nice. And so that's something that we're moving forward. But I mean, the gem of our collection really is these ATLs. We have probably the biggest collection of the Athenian tribute lists, and working on those reconstructions. One thing we would like to do, because right now they're kind of immortalized in stone in the Athenian Epigraphic Museum, is that is based on a reconstruction. So wouldn't it be cool if we could actually have all of the fragments available on a platform where people can actually move the fragments around and see if they're actually in the form that they're in. We have so many pipe dreams. We just need programmers and other people who would be willing to do some of that stuff, because we do not have that kind of expertise. But there's all kinds of things where we see this moving forward, which is also why we're trying to talk to as many people as we can to see if these are really pipe dreams or whether they're things that we can actually do.
What's the relationship between, in editing inscriptions, what's Eagle's current plan to do it?
So Eagle has its own wiki,
Yes.
where they're doing mostly translations, as I understand.
Yeah.
But they're also federating Heidelberg and
Yeah.
various others, right?
Yeah.
So you could enter that pipeline that way, and we did provide an integration with Perseus,
Right.
which now allows for a review workflow,
Right.
right? So that's one avenue. And I don't know what your plan was, and if you've talked to Attic Inscriptions Online, they
Yep.
are also entering that pipeline as well, right?
Yeah, we're just, all of that is kind of on hold until we get this little hiccup organized, because this is what's making it very difficult for us to move forward with those and the linking especially. But hopefully in the next year, that will happen. So we're trying to get some of the teaching module stuff organized while we wait.
I mean, looking at the Attic Inscriptions Online, which I looked at before, and I think the reason I've looked at it recently again, it doesn't make it's the rights, it sells some stuff.
Yeah.
If you can't download, if you get put into an environment where people can't freely download the full content, content that you produced, it puts you in a not necessarily in the best place.
Yeah.
Charging $5 for papers and so on.
Yes.
Is going to get you enough money to make up for that. So.
No, we can make more making t-shirts.
I speak as the open access officer there.
Yes.
Open access Beauftragte of the University of Leipzig as well.
Yeah.
So these guys are affiliated in the context of Project Eagle, but any EU-funded stuff's all going to be open. I'm sure Shirk is all open all the time these days.
Yeah.
So again, one of those things you could get and end up making into a certain environment and habit of thought and workflow that could then screw you later.
Right.
For the I think a lot of $5 papers
Yes.
to make up for that.
Yes. No, that is true. And we have been, basically one of the grad students who's been involved in the actual photography stuff, and the digitization stuff, she's been chatting with them and to see, again, with our digital librarian, what that's going to look like. Because for the digital librarians and for UBC's open access, they wouldn't necessarily want to enter into that kind of partnership either, because they want all of this material to be freely available. So we just have to, we're in preliminary talks, it's trying to figure out how to actually move forward. And once we actually get to a point where we can move forward with this stuff.
Are you going to be at the Digital Humanities, the Canadian Digital Humanities thing at the end of May, or just at the CAC?
We have been there in the past. I'm trying to think if Lisa Tweeden is going again this year. There may be someone from our project there. Larissa Ringham usually goes every year. She's our digital librarian. And so she will be around. But yeah, I think that's it for this year.
Okay,
But-
just curious, there'll be, we have a panel there, I'll be there, so we got, pardon me? Oh, yeah, I got accepted, so we gotta get people to, if anyone's gonna come to the panel, now it's been accepted.
All right, well, I will pass that along. Also, if you are around, I mean, we are just a hop, skip, and a jump across the strait, so we can always come and meet with you as well at that point.
In Bruce?
You're in Victoria. We are in Vancouver.
No, they're the,
Isn't it the digital?
it's gonna be in
Canada?
Ottawa this year.
Oh, the Ottawa one. Okay, that's a bit farther. No, there's a
I know in
digital.
Canada, things are big,
Yeah,
so,
things
you know.
No,
Ottawa-
sorry. I was thinking about there's a digital humanities like thing that happens every summer in June in Victoria.
Oh, yes, well, that's Ray
that we go
Stevens'
to
thing.
regularly.
And then he and his wife come and visit us in Leipzig, and we're in
It's a little bit
Digital
farther.
Humanities summer school.
Okay.
Yes, but it's still awesome.
So when is the Ottawa one?
It's like June 1st, something like that,
Okay.
maybe June 1st, like a week. It's the worst possible time. It's like
Yes.
10 days after your Toronto thing, so.
Right. Yeah. Of course.
Just go sit and talk to the bears for a week in the forest.
Okay.
Some beavers as well. Cougars, perhaps. Coyotes. You know, the usual.
That's what I would do. I love cannabis.
On that note.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, you know,